Well, hello, this is Keith with Positively Osceola. Welcome to Positively Osceola Live. It is just moved into the post-morning phase of this Monday. And so hopefully you had a great Monday morning. I know I did. And hope you had a great weekend as well, as we have now placed this show obviously on a Monday, which we always tell you we won't date our shows, but have done so. And that's okay, because today is going to be a great discussion. I know that because we've had a few with this person before, and they're always great, and we're always grateful to have with us the state representative for District 46, Kristen Arrington, with us. And bam, there she is.
Good morning. How are you, Keith? Or good afternoon. We're officially 12, a couple minutes after.
Just past that, we breached morning barriers, so it's cool. So you're approaching a busy time up there, aren't you?
Absolutely. This is our last interim committee week before we start the legislative session. So I will be here this week, and then I will be home next week in the district, and then up here for about 2 months straight.
Cool. Yeah, we it was, we're, again, I'll date this particular show, and as the Osceola County Fair, the annual largest show in Osceola County, and then of course Silver Spurs Rodeo. I tell you, it was, the weather cooperated for both those events, and it was humans from one side to the other of Osceola Heritage Park for sure. So,
yep, it was a wonderful weekend for all, and I know that a lot of folks enjoyed the rodeo and the fair. I got to go Friday night for a bit as well, and it was great to see a lot of folks.
Saw the photos. Yeah, it was a blast. We love it, but it is nice to hit that Monday when you're looking back. I swear, we drove by where Heritage Osceola Heritage Park today. And it's depressing, though, because the Ferris wheels are already down. I'm like, my gosh, man, those guys are professionals.
Absolutely.
It's all good. Well, we got some folks popping on, so that signals that we can make this thing official if it's okay with you.
Sounds great.
Rock on. Here we go. Don't know why I do it, but every single time I play that, I gravitate to the one guy who is a bari saxophone player that played with a band on New Year's Eve at St. Cloud, and he was yelling, so I yelled, and then I took a selfie, and I see it every time I play that thing. It's weird. Who's to know? Hey, so again, making it real now. We are so honored once again on Positively Osceola Live to be with the state representative for District 46, Kristen Arrington. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Keith. It's a beautiful day here in Tallahassee, about, I think, 65 degrees when I was outside and the sun is shining. So I'm looking forward to, I think, a week of good weather and no rain here.
Yeah, that's nice. We didn't make an error being Floridians. I'm pretty sure of that one.
Absolutely. This Florida girl would never move up north. I didn't even see snow until I was 21 years old. So,
as it should be for everyone, actually.
At coming of age, see snow.
That's when you're seasoned with Ted and you can handle it. So these are and I say it every time, these are the easy interviews for me, easy discussions for me, because you are, ultra knowledgeable about what you're doing. And we do compliment you right to your face, kind of, when we say we appreciate how much you communicate with us, but certainly that means you're communicating with those that you represent. And I know that's the nature of what you do. And it doesn't happen with everybody. So we do appreciate you take some time and tell us what's going on up in Tallahassee and what we should expect to see beginning March 6th in the general session. So I'm going to turn it over to you. And let you go for it. Cool.
Thank you. And I appreciate you all as well for always giving me the opportunity to keep people in the loop. And then you always kind of ask some great, just normal questions that probably everybody is wondering, or always bring a great view to it. So I do appreciate that interaction as well.
Of course.
This last week, we did week 5 for the interim committee weeks. And this week we have week 6 for interim committee weeks before the legislative session. We will still have committee weeks going while session is, so it does seem a little confusing. But in theory, we should just be hearing committee bills and regular bills as they go through the committee agendas before they go to session, which starts on March 6th. But it has been a little bit interesting, and we have had already 2 special sessions before the legislative session. So, even though we are going off into session March 6th, we still already have had a couple sessions and, have voted on bills that have already become into law. But this last week was kind of wasn't really anything too controversial in my committees that I heard. We did hear the one that would probably affect people the most, and what was most controversial was a constitutional amendment bill. Currently, if you have a constitutional amendment on the ballot, such as, legalizing marijuana, stuff for Save Our Lands, raising minimum wage, currently you have to receive 60% of the voter support for that amendment to pass. Well, this last week we heard legislation that would raise that threshold to 66.67%, which would make it extremely difficult for a constitutional amendment to pass and to get some of the things that we've had on the ballot in the past that the actual people of Florida want to get heard. So I do encourage everyone to keep an eye on that and let your legislators know how you feel on that. A lot of folks that are for advocacy and for letting the folks bring forward what they would like are very upset about this bill with good reason, because it is going to make it harder for the people to pass legislation. So do keep an eye out on that. That was, I think, probably the only thing that I did vote no for. So that was a refreshing week as well. My Civil Justice Committee, we heard, I think, about 6 or 7 bills, and they were equally balanced with Democrats and Republicans. So that was very nice. And I think every one of them passed unanimously through that committee. And that was things like helping students and their parents that are special needs with an education plan for their parents to be able to participate in that longer, and for them to know when a student becomes 18, but they might still need some assistance. It would allow the parent to assist with that. Additionally, we voted on a bill to provide lactation spaces in courthouses for new mothers, whether they be working at the courthouse or they're for jury duty or visiting the courthouse, so they have a space that they're able to do that, and they don't have to go to their cars and pump them like unfortunately many working mothers do nowadays. And then also we did vote on legislation called Grayson's Law, which is a horrible situation where a woman was being stalked by her ex-husband, and she tried to get protection and orders against him, and tried to keep her son from having to go to his house with his parents' visitation rights. And unfortunately, she was unsuccessful in that, and the child was killed by his father, and the father committed suicide. So some legislation has come forward that would help protect parents, because it's both sides, mothers and fathers, that have that situation a lot of times with their ex, unfortunately, where we want to make sure that we protect the child. They're not caught up in the battle and caught up in retaliation for their parent. And additionally, we did just kind of a couple little fixes in laws that were some boring stuff for folks, but some of those things that we find in unintended consequences along the way. And you can go to myfloridahouse.gov and you can click on my page, and you can see the committees I serve on. You can see those bills that we voted on, so you can kind of see what happened last week. But also this week, since we have our last committee week that we're hearing bills in, tomorrow we are hearing in the Judiciary Committee at 8 in the morning, the permitless carry bill. So I know that that's a big deal for folks across the state of Florida, not just those in my district. So folks that are watching everywhere, if you want to tune in tomorrow, thefloridachannel.org, you can watch that live, or you can watch that afterwards. But also, I encourage you, if you have strong opinions on that legislation, to reach out to the folks that are on that committee, such as myself, that will be voting on it tomorrow. I have received hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails in regards to it. And I'm sure that we will have a lot of people that will be coming up here to public testify in regards to it. So that one is probably the biggest thing on the agenda this week, along with this Friday in my Civil Justice Committee. They will be hearing legislation on tort reform for attorneys, which is probably a phrase that folks back home don't hear a lot, nor do people in the district ask for tort reform.
Right.
But it is something that has been tried up here multiple years, and so we will see how it moves this year as well.
So I'm going to jump back if
Please.
it's okay with you. So I know that we do a lot of work with the school district. So I know, we've had communication about ESE classes and, certainly students that have IEPs. And I guess that's, if I'm correct, individual education plans. So if I'm hearing you correct, and that does, my understanding is that does end at 18 or graduation. I forget how that all works. So you're saying what's being proposed is that would extend further.
It would extend further to their graduation, because what's actually interesting,
Gotcha.
you really hit the nail on the head. And that's what I do love that you always bring up, is that even though the student might be 18 years old, they can still graduate till later years. But currently the parent would only be involved in that situation up until 18 years old. So if they're staying in school longer and probably still with their parents, and their parents are planning for them, this will allow the parent to be more involved. We're not wanting students not to have any rights or any say at their correct age, but we do want to make sure that if their parents are still taking care of them, and if they've worked with them on this education plan, that they're not just kind of put out, so to speak, just because the student has become 18 years old.
Right, and I think that's a common occurrence. From what I can see, it's probably a somewhat common occurrence, because those kids are maybe not, maybe it's beneficial to them to not be automatically a senior if you're 18, because they've had challenges. And I think that does happen. Some of my friends, we've discussed that, their teachers, and so that kind of goes hand in hand, right? A kid that might be beneficial in third grade, fourth grade, to wait another year to move them on. So thus there's the issue, right? They're already 18, mom and dad, unless there's something legally in place, they can't answer for those kids, right?
Or even a late birthday thrown in there too, a little bit to add to it. So one of my colleagues, Representative Allison Tant, she has a son with special needs, and she's been a big advocate for him, and also for parents that have, been through similar situations to her. So many of the pieces of legislation that she brings forward is from her personal experience. And also here in Tallahassee, she has helped receive appropriations for, and I don't want to get it wrong, it's there's a place where these children, once they become legal age, that they're able to live their lives out with a little bit of assistance, but still can be independent on their own, but still can be kind of watched over and taken care of, because with medical care nowadays, these children become adults and they're outliving their parents, and then who is the one that's taking care of them? So this is, I'm just a big fan of hers, because she's really looking at future plans for these students, so they can be out on their own, and they can be independent and live a satisfying life.
Yeah, that's huge. When you were talking about that, and although they may appear to be different subjects, big time. So that, and then when I heard you talk about the lactation scenario, I'll just talk for me. I think sometimes it's amazing that those laws are not in place already, right? I mean, and I know that's crazy, because it's not how it works, but it does hit the normal thinking of, gosh, how is that in 2023? How is that already not in place?
Right, absolutely. And I think, a lot of times legislation like this is just, someone, the person that's sponsoring it is a freshman colleague of mine, Representative Gant, and she's an attorney. So, she saw that there was a need for this. She's not a mother, but, she works with many mothers. And so, like many of us, she sees a need. And so then, she stepped up and got a lot of support on it. And at the same time, for some courthouses that maybe can't provide this, or it's going to be too much of a financial burden on them, they're not going to require them. But all of those that can need to do so.
So if you have enough time, can we go to, and you reference it, it's certainly a controversial scenario in the state of Florida, everywhere in the country, certainly when we talk about gun laws, anything like that, certainly rises the temperature of the room up. because it's a polarizing topic for sure. So I don't, but again, almost coming back to what I just said about not being aware of certain laws and then bills. So could you give us kind of an overview, if you have time to give us an overview of what's being proposed as far as concealed weapons?
Absolutely. And I've got a little bit of notes here. So if I look to the side, it's just because I was reading over this morning. But currently you can carry a concealed weapon on you if you have taken a concealed weapons course, which has some education and training, and they also test that you're able to fire a gun. I did take a concealed weapons course myself. I didn't apply for my license, but I took a concealed weapons course myself. And I do have to say, I didn't think the gun handling was enough. I had gotten a gun that I was able to point at the wall and shoot at a bullseye, and it wasn't a real bullet, obviously. So that was the gun training. But I do have to say the education was very interesting to me, and that's why I did not end up getting a concealed weapons license permit, because I did not feel that I was the right person to have something like that. But what the legislation that they're proposing would do would allow everyone to, I'm trying to think of how to say this, act as if they have a concealed weapons permit. So they would just have to have identification on them. So you could carry a gun on you with your driver's license and have the same rights as people that have done the concealed weapons course, went through the application process and so forth already. Some of the major changes with that is currently, if you have a gun on you and you do not have a concealed weapons permit, my understanding is that it is a 3rd degree misdemeanor. But with the change, it would be a $25 fine if you don't have a driver's license on you. So let's say you were carrying a gun with this law change and you didn't have your driver's license on you to show proof of identity. If I'm understanding this correctly, you're only fine, or what you would have to suffer would be a $25 fine. So that right there was a major change to me. I think that this would appeal to a lot of folks that are coming from other states as well, because then of course they could carry a concealed weapons permit and not have to have, they have to have jurisdiction with their state if they're here. And but the other things that I thought was very interesting too is some of the changes is that you wouldn't be able to have this gun in places like schools or government building as you do now. So you could still get into more trouble if you carried a gun there. But my worry is, if we're not making folks do this concealed weapons training, is that they're not going to know where they can and cannot have a gun. So I think that we'll have some problems there as well in the future. And then also they will have still high penalties. And I'm sorry, I meant originally not 3rd degree misdemeanor, 3rd degree felony. But right. I think if I'm understanding this correctly, though, is if you did have a gun in a school with this law change, though, it still would be a 3rd degree felony. But if you did have a concealed weapons permit, it would just be a 2nd degree felony. So there's the legislation is still encouraging and giving a little bit more power to folks that do have their concealed weapons permit, to try to, I guess, probably encourage people to still go through that. Right. But it is still empowering folks that do not have a concealed weapons permit to be able to do all the things that the folks that do have that permit do. So folks could be carrying a concealed weapon on them and they would not have to get their fingerprints done or have to do a background check like they do now. So there's some parts of it that are very alarming. I feel like even if you are for permitless carry, I'm not for it. I don't think it's a good idea. I think we can all see from COVID how shootings have gone up across the United States, and myself and my Democratic caucus, I'm sure, will be fighting very hard for no's tomorrow.
So I wonder how this would affect. And you mentioned people coming from out of state. I wonder how this would affect. I'm trying to process, how would this affect, good or bad, TSA? In, you know what I'm saying? Because now we're in a place where it's a very different, if this was to pass, some would say this is a relaxation of the current scenario. And then how does that affect in getting into terminal scenario? You know what I'm saying? I'm not being in favor or against it right now. I'm just kind of trying to process, how does that it seems much more casual. So if that's the case, are we asking more casual use to come into the terminal, which
Yep, they would still have the same requirements that they would have to do to fly with a weapon. Sure. But what I would say is that probably more folks would probably be driving or carrying while they're driving. I mean, we know a lot of folks just drive to Florida from different states because, sure, now they will be able to carry. And then that's my worry too, is, we put it on the businesses to post, where they can't carry and so forth. But, right, of course, there's no guarantees that these folks will know where they're not supposed to carry or, see a sign. And I think also in the legislation, if I remember, there's a little tidbit in there too. If you accidentally show your gun, but not in a threatening way, and you have a concealed weapons permit, that it's lighter potential problems to happen for you. And like I said, it's definitely a lot to the bill. And I started looking at it this morning and looking at it more today before we do hear it tomorrow. But I do encourage everyone that they can go look at it themselves too on myfloridahouse.gov, and definitely have your feedback to us. People have very general feedback on how they feel about it, but also have feedback on very specific parts of it. Folks that maybe have more gun experience and gun safety experience that see some of those nuances that I haven't noticed yet.
Yeah, I mentioned all that on TSA because I have seen different data coming in that it's an amazing. I'm just like common sense guy. Not that I have any, but it just hit I looked at some statistics that showed how often TSA runs into people that forgot they had their gun, and it was actually loaded. So to me, it's that's why I mentioned, would it increase the casual possibly? You couldn't answer that, of course, but hopefully it won't if it was ever passed.
I mean, I think we have, statistics and data from other states to show, that unfortunately situations like that do happen. Right. People, even who have the best of intentions, we're all very busy with their lives. And if you have something that you usually carry on you or as part of your wearing, you might forget when you're going into, a theme park or a church or a school or whatever, and not have bad intentions. But, right. Yeah, so that definitely is one of the worries. It definitely has been our most heard about bill probably so far this session. So I do expect that we will hear from a lot more folks in the public, and we'll probably receive a lot of national news attention and so forth regarding it.
Right. That, and of course, how we will move forward as a state with what has been the Reedy Creek district. Certainly that's another zinger for the month of March for you guys, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. I mean, we will have new board of directors with Reedy Creek that will be, appointed by the governor. And right. So we will see, who those are and who those folks are. We try to propose amendments that those folks couldn't be $1 million donors to political campaigns, but that did not happen. And also we tried to propose legislation to get folks from Osceola and Orange County or electeds from Osceola and Orange to be required to be on the board since they know the area, but the requirement is for them just to be a resident of Florida. Gotcha.
Anything else you want us to know about what you're expecting from the session?
Yeah, well, as stated, we're just finishing up our committee week. So we, and I have to be honest that we haven't seen a lot of legislation, which does lead me to believe that, the first week of session or the first couple weeks of session, we will be seeing a lot. So, please follow me for updates and check with Keith, but also keep up to date on myfloridahouse.gov. You can see what committees are meeting, what legislation that they're hearing. Also, if you want to go to the floridachannel.org, you can watch meetings live. You can watch them before, well, not before, obviously you can't, sorry, we're not future, but you can watch them afterwards too. If you do miss a committee meeting and you want to see, like myself, I'm going to be hearing permitless carry tomorrow. So today I'm going to watch the meeting for the last committee stop that it was in, just so I can kind of hear what everybody said and, what was brought to light at that time. So it's great to see afterwards, kind of not only what the votes are, but if you want to hear what the public input was and, what the content was of the legislator, it's a great way to stay in the loop.
Very good. Well, you have an exciting month ahead of you for sure. Actually, no, it's 60 days, correct?
Correct. So I will be home next week and hope to see everybody. And then it'll be 60 days after that. unless we don't finish the budget in time or unless we have more special sessions, both which have happened already since I've been here. So we will see when we are done, Keith. We're never done.
I keep saying it's a part-time job that's morphed into semi-full-time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But this is how it's been since I've been elected. So I know nothing different. And this is what I signed up for. And I'm happy to be a part of it.
Well, you're always smiling, and that's a good thing. And again, I want to compliment you that you continue to communicate with, with the community here, even when you're up in Tallahassee. We do appreciate it very much because it's a lot, and things are all things seem to be much more complex than they used to be, and they were already complex. So we appreciate the communication and info, definitely.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you all as always. And yes, things are moving very fastly here. So appreciate the opportunity to keep everybody in the loop, and just do recommend for folks to, know it's hard, but just follow along so you know what's going on.
Well, we shall do that for sure. And I'll close with this. I know sometimes people don't know which district. Certainly things have changed a bit. So some people don't know which district is representing, who's representing you in what district you are. Certainly, as we mentioned before, reach out to the representative. And if you're not speaking to the right representative, I'm sure somebody that's helping you in your office would be more than glad to let you know who that representative is, correct?
Absolutely. And if you do go to myfloridahouse.gov, you can click on the button that says find your representative, and you can type in your address, and it will tell you your representatives in all branches of the government. So you can find out who all those folks are all at once, which is a great tool. See,
it all makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It does. All right. Well, again, we appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Keith. I appreciate yours too. And look forward to seeing you all soon.
Got it. All right. We look forward to it as well. Again, this is Keith with Positively Osceola on Positively Osceola Live with Kristen Arrington, State Representative for District 46. And we really appreciate you very much, together making a positive difference in and around Osceola County. Thanks.
Thank you.